All right, so in 2019, there was a report that came out, and I have a little clip here from a news thing. It's only about 3 minutes long and stuff. This was in 2019, because believe it or not, a lot of times, years and years after a certain situation, a certain case, you will not find the truth because the FBI, all these intelligence communities, they hold on to their documents, they hold on to their memos, so therefore you don't know about the truth, what's going on, and then it's just kind of like this whole election process. They pause it out, stall it out to where it doesn't make that much of a difference anymore. And a lot of people are not paying attention to what happened in 69 or 73? I think he was shot around there. It could have been 69, 1970. He was shot. And this is Chairman Fred Hampton. I was going to bring my picture down here today. I have it upstairs. But they have now just recently declassified some documents last year, late in 2019. And this will give you a little example about what's going on, how this particular case wasn't just done by locals. It went all the way to the top. And it relates to what's going on today and how we are being just pitted against each other and who's pulling the strings. Take a look.
And Rob, some call that deadly raid the massacre on Monroe Street. Black Panther leaders Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were killed, but it was also really a turning point that took years to uncover government motives and their efforts to silence the Black Panther movement. Today, Hampton and Clark's loved ones, though, they held a moment of silence, but they will not be silenced at all as they continue to speak out about that deadly raid and today's issues as well. Ground Zero, the two-flat Chicago police raided 50 years ago, killing Fred Hampton, the chairman of Illinois' Black Panther Party, his then-fiancée 8.5 months pregnant in the same bedroom when police busted in.
When Chairman Fred looked up from the bed, and he moved real slow, and he never moved out the bed and laid his head back down slow. And I left that room with no blood on my clothing, which indicates he had not been shot while I was in the room.
Chicago police shot and killed Hampton and Mark Clark, who was the Panthers' defense captain. Today, their families, along with dozens of Black Panthers and community members, gathered to remember that moment. Blair Anderson said he survived the police raid that morning because of Clark.
In my opinion, and a little romantic it may sound, makes Mark Clark the hero of December 4th.
Today, Clark's family still carries this message. What happened 50 years ago still happens today.
The deaths, the assassinations continue. The police assault on the Black community is horrendous.
And while time has passed, the lessons of those original Panthers continue, and the activism as well. Joan McCarty now teaches at Spelman College.
I always remember what Fred said, you know, you have to keep the revolution alive, you have to keep struggling. So that's the next generation, and that's one of my contributions.
What Fred used to say was that the beat goes on, and the beat goes on.
The next beat is the next generation. Fred Hampton Jr. now leads the Black Panther Party Cubs, and he's also consulting movie producers as they turn Fred Hampton's life into a movie.
This is still a battle to make sure that that legacy stays intact, you know what I'm saying? So again, this is the closer we come engaged into a process of a project, a movie on Chairman Fred.
And Fred Hampton Jr. tells me he is actively involved on the movie set. The story will reflect on his dad's life and December 4th, 1969, the actual moment, the day of the raid. The movie hasn't been titled just yet, but Hampton Jr. says that it is going to be out next year. It's also really important to note as well, the federal government, Cook County, and the city of Chicago, they did pay out a $1.8 million settlement to the survivors and also to Hampton and Clark's family. So that tells you where the culpability was as well.
Hey, if you like
This picture, but I just wanted to show the article that we're going to put up right here. You can see this is done by the Zago brothers. I thought it was really important. This is going to be the same picture from the article we're going to put up. And this is done by the Zago brothers. It's I really thought it was important to go get this and show their work because it's amazing, because he asked me what I would want. And take a look at that. That's going to be mounted and up on our wall. But you can see this new document that will show you that was just released. The same picture. Fred Hampton right there. And I think this is a picture they recovered from the family that was kind of beat up and crinkly and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But it shows that it went all the way to the top, fam, inside the article. Let me just put this aside. Hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to put this to the side, and I'll take care of it after. Sorry.
So basically, J. Edgar Hoover
Yeah.
was involved in Fred Hampton's murder.
What does that mean, fam? I mean, I'm just wondering your initial response.
Do you have
when
anything
think
more
about
to elaborate on that?
Well, I mean, inside the article, it just talks about it. Like in March 1976, we sat in the Chicago courtroom while the FBI and Roy Mitchell testified to the civil rights case, and it pretty much just goes into. I want to go down a little bit where it talks about this one particular program, the COINTELPRO, and in this case. They didn't want to release all the documents right away, fam. They had to constantly fight to ask for documents and more documents and more documents and more documents. And they have all inside this article that the big part, John, it says, the court held is in no uncertain terms that we had amassed a powerful record of 2 successive police, help me out.
Prosecutorial.
Thank you. And FBI conspiracies. And inside here, they literally have the bonus money that was okayed from Edgar Hoover to give to these informants, these cops for doing certain things. And they have every single one of their files, their memos. They got a hold of the memos. And it took years to get this. And just think about it, how long a case like this can take and how much money it could bleed you. Because the FBI talks about the way, and Ray McGovern talks about this a lot. There's a lot of FBI agents that will hold on to information, they'll thwart information, and they won't give it to you. But these released files showed that it went all the way to the top to J. Edgar Hoover. And a lot of people might just kind of say, oh, well, what does that really mean? Fam, what does it mean? Because a lot of people talked about, it was the local cops. They got some help from the FBI. Mm-hmm. It was one of those things where the locals killed him. No. If it's going from the very top of the FBI, it's coming from the government. The government was trying to stop a man like Fred Hampton because it's just what they were talked about. Chris Hedges talked about. A lot of people have been talking about it since this came out, is that once he started bringing people together, and I'm talking he was bringing the worst of worst people that we would say today. He was bringing together what people we would call white nationalists back in the 60s and the 70s, and he was getting them to march together. The FBI, the CIA, the government saw him as a threat and had him assassinated.
Right, and this is perfect because this is what's happening now. You see the visceral attacks on those of us who are interested in building a rainbow coalition, interested in talking to the working class and elevating that class struggle, because through elevating the class struggle, you also elevate the concerns for racial injustice, because a lot of that has to do with miseducation. Yeah. On one end, poor working class white people have been told and taught to blame the immigrants, to blame other people, when it's really not those people you should be looking at. You should be looking at the top. In the same way, now what's happened is the black imperialist has shown up, and the black imperialist in Barack Obama has made this issue worse, because now they have promoted intersectional fascism, right? We have all these people like Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, and all the goons that they have put in the incoming Joe Biden administration, who are, we have the most intersectional and diverse administration, but it's a bunch of warmonger, torturous pieces of shit. Yeah. It doesn't matter what color they are. Yeah. And Fred Hampton warned us about this a long time ago. He says if we don't fight this imperialism, we're gonna have a black imperialist. It can't just be about leading with the identity politics of it. It's got to be the everything, working people against the empire. Yeah. And so when you do that, when you have shows like this, and when you have other shows that focus like Jimmy Dore's, and you see that your focus is on actually really uniting people, not uniting party lines, not uniting you to be assimilated into swallowing the mainstream propaganda narrative, but uniting the people, the classes across the board. When that happens, you are a threat. This is why we are getting calls to deplatform people like Dore. People like us have been like, there are vicious attacks right now, calling to deplatform us, saying you shouldn't listen to them, you shouldn't subscribe to them, they should be taken down. There's a reason for that, and you have to take notes on who's calling for that and why. Most of the time, it's people who want to reform the Democratic Party. People who want you to believe that the squad and all of these people working within the Democratic Party are going to be the way to achieving things. And that is not the case. And we don't sit there and tell people that you should take down this platform or not because they're a bunch of democratic idiots. Even though I may think they're idiots, they have a right to a platform. But when you start saying, no, shut them up, take them down, that's dangerous. And they're threatened by that because imagine if everybody could listen to what we're saying. Think of how the connections we would make. Think of how we could bring people together.
Yeah, fam, let's talk about a story that really brought some people together. This is a crazy one. Our good friend Niko always talks about this one. Johnny, on this next one, the title is really quick. It's let me roll it down. And it's called In Chicago 1969 When Black Panthers Aligned with the Confederate Flag-Wielding Working Class Whites. And I want to go down to the Chicago in the 1960s, if you go down to there. Because pretty much the beginning of the article talks about how Donald Trump got a lot of more votes from people of color and people from the LGBT community and just workers who were sick and tired of the Democratic Party for leaving them out in the cold. And didn't think that Donald Trump was necessarily the bee's honey, but he was better than the establishment who was working against him constantly. And a lot of people did fear the money that big tech put into Joe Biden's pockets and his warmongering. It's crazy when you have a guy who amped up the drone bombing by 400%, but yet can sit there and say, I'm better than the Democrats because I didn't start any new wars. I mean, it's like, geez, I mean, this is a peacetime president. That shows you where America is right now when it comes to our foreign policy. Chicago in the 1960s was a brutal place for poor people, okay? Black, brown, and white people all dealt with poverty, unemployment, police violence, substandard housing, inadequate schools, and a lack of social services. Ethnic and racial groups each created their own social service and activist networks to combat every kind of oppression. One was the Young Patriot Organization, the YPO, which was based in Hillbilly Harlem, an uptown neighborhood of Chicago populated by displaced white Southerners. Many YPO members were racist, and they flaunted controversial symbols associated with Southern pride, such as the Confederate flag. But like blacks and Latinos, the white Young Patriots and their families experienced discrimination in Chicago. In their case, it was because they were poor and from the South. In his short time as a Black Panther leader, Fred Hampton wanted to advance the group's goals by forming a rainbow coalition of working class and poor people of all races. Former members of the Chicago Panthers and YPO tell different versions of the same story of how the groups connected. Each attended the other's organizing meetings and decided to work together on their common issues. Over time, the Black Panthers learned to tolerate the Confederate flags as intransigent signs for rebellion. Did I say that right?
Intransigent.
Thank you. For signs for rebellion. Their only stipulation was that the white Young Patriots denounce racism. Eventually, Young Patriots rejected their deeply embedded ideas of white supremacy and even the Confederate flag as they realized how much they had in common with the Black Panthers and Latino Young Lords. And I just want you to show that picture right there, okay? And this is what we've talked about this a lot, you know what I'm saying? That he didn't care about their flag. He's like, it's symbolism. He convinced a lot of Panthers that were like, no way, no way. He's like, trust me on this. And before long, they got rid of the flag. They understood what it was like.
Because you can't force people to do something. You got to let them see, and then they do it. Because if you tell people to do something, and they have these beliefs that are embedded through miseducation and fear and manipulation, then if you tell them something, no, it's going to be worse. And Franco was mentioning that in his stream yesterday. You know, you got to let people figure it out for themselves too. You can drop all these hints, but like if you're going to demand something and say you're a moron because you're doing this, like that's not always going to work. And he used a different strategy, and it worked because all it takes is you guys fighting together for a common cause and them seeing, hey, this guy isn't the problem. He's standing side by side with me. I've been misguided my whole life. Let me fight who I really need to fight. That's dangerous. That's powerful.
And this works. And you know, when I bring up a lot of these stories in the past and whatnot, we talk about this. I'm not trying to alleviate myself of any responsibility or try to blind myself to what goes on. I'm just trying to present solutions that will actually work because they've worked before. And these are the things that really scare the shit. They scare the shit out of the elites and the people up top, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And you know, we've talked about this before. Like, why do black people have to take a backseat and bite the bullet and people gloss over the racial issues that obviously happen on a regular basis. And it's not that, I don't want to say that anybody's dumb or whatnot and stuff like that. It's that people just get defensive right away. So when you put them in a position to say, hey, you're responsible for what happened in the past, and we have to recognize the racial disparities, sometimes they look at it as like, well, what about me? I'm poor. I'm not getting anything. And they get in the stance like this. So it's kind of like that movie Bobby we watched when Morpheus was saying, all you got to do is just tell these people a little bit what they want to hear. Make them think it's like their idea. Now, that might not be the most genuine thing, but like I said, I think it's the most effective, because when you tell them, hey, man, we're in this together, we're getting screwed, and then we go through this fight together, those white people are going to see, damn, you really are getting oppressed. They look at you differently, whatnot. They treat you differently sometimes, and they'll see that. But you got to first form that bond.
You build empathy. That some people haven't been, haven't had the upbringing that they needed to have. This is years and years and years of racism in this country, and I'm not, and by any means, saying that it's okay or that it should be on the backs of the minority communities who have suffered. But at the same time, when we're hitting a breaking point where everybody is suffering. Everybody. Yeah. And so in order to make that connection that we're all suffering, there's got to be some sort of, okay, like, I understand your point. I understand why you're upset. Now here, listen to why these people are upset. And that's why there's you can build these connections. Reverend Annie Chambers, who has been on Slow News Day several times, she was also an advocate of this too. And it's amazing to me, and she's a powerful Black woman, and this is what they're afraid of, you guys. This is why they say, oh, those people, they're all Nazis, da 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 da, and there may very well have been Nazis. I mean, there were white supremacist flags, there were all these symbols and all of that, but I think some people that day found out that they were being used, and they found out that nobody was going to save them, and that in itself is the allowing people to say, wait a minute, like, I've been led wrong, whether it was for Trump, whether it was for putting too much reliance on Bernie, whether it's for putting too much reliance on any sort of party. People are realizing, like, these fuckers they don't give a shit about us. They don't really care about us. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Fam, I got one more speech, Johnny. It's about 5 minutes. I don't know if that's too long, but towards the end of the speech is where he starts talking, and it's something that you wouldn't be able to say today. All the power to all the people. And then he went through every single group and said that. Now, you can't even say that today. It would get taken down if I said,
what? All the power to the people?
But he was saying,
oh, okay.
He was saying each one individually and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want you to look at the crowd. I want you to notice what's going on. Like, you know what I'm saying? And this is the thing. I keep saying this. This is what they're scared of. And I remember, somebody at a rally out here in Beverly Hills, and we saw people fighting, the Proud Boys fighting with, some of the Black Lives Matter people. It's like, you guys have to realize that you have a lot more in common than the people that you are fighting about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those people that are up top there, it's like professional wrestling. They say what they want. They keep the divide going so they can hold on to powers. That's why I believe that, the elections are so much of a mechanism. It's the illusion that you have a democracy. But let's take a look. This is one speech. I don't think the speech is played enough, this one. It's not the cleanest sound, but once again, take a look.
I'm the deputy chairman of the state of Illinois Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton. And a lot of people don't understand the Black Panther Party's relationship with white mother country radicals. A lot of people don't even understand that word that Elwood uses a lot. But what we're saying is that there are white people in the mother country that are for the same types of things that we are for stimulating revolution in the mother country. And we said that we'll work with anybody and form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism. And we know that racism is a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people. Everybody in the state of Illinois is going to have to be involved or even around the revolution, because we're going to have one. We're going to have to do more than talk. We're going to have to do more than listen. We're going to even have to do more than learn. We're going to have to start practicing, and that's very hard. We're going to have to start learning, and you learn through practice. We got to start making mistakes, and you learn through making mistakes. We got to start getting out there with the people. And a lot of times we think we're better than the people, but that's an insult, and that's criminal. Think you're better than the people. But we got to get together and learn where it's at. It's going to take a lot of hard work. That breakfast for children is something else. You ought to dig on it. Every sister in this audience. Every sister in this audience ought to get themselves together and come on down and help us with that breakfast for children program. You ought to come down and help feed them children in the morning. We have breakfast for children because we teach the people through practice, through observation and participation, that people can be fed free. That's the people thing. Socialism is the people. You're afraid of yourself. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself. We know they have our pictures. We know they're looking for us. We know they want us. But we're still saying that even though we could be in a sense, as far as this system goes, on the mountaintop, we in the Black Panther Party, because of our dedication and understanding what's in the valley, knowing that the people in the valley, knowing that we originally came from the valley, knowing that our flag is the same flag as the people in the valley, knowing that our enemy is on the mountaintop, our friends are in the valley, we say even though it's nice to be on the mountaintop, we're going back to the valley. I be in the office every day. I'd be in the streets propagandizing every day. I'd be working with everybody every day. I'd be teaching that solidarity is the thing. The end of a complete wipeout of imperialism is the thing. So if you're going to be thinking about me, that's what Bobby would be teaching. If you're going to be thinking about us, all we say is ain't no thing about going nowhere, getting killed. All we want to know is that you're doing what we'd be doing if we were here. And you got to do that. You can't do it unless you believe that you can do it. In the spirit of liberation, we understand that they want everybody in the party in jail. And we know that if we try to figure out and separate and divide who should go and who shouldn't go, we spend more time doing that than working for the people. So the quick solution, the speedy one, nobody goes. Nobody goes. We all stay right here. With the people. Because we love the people. Okay, you can put your hands down now. We say all power to all people. We say white power to white people. Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people. X power to those that we left out. We say Panther power to the Vanguard Party. When you leave here saying the last word, before you go to bed tonight, say I am a revolutionary. Make that the last word. In case you don't wake up, then somebody might believe it and you might, end up in what they call a revolutionary happy hunting ground. Say that. I am a revolutionary. Say it when you're going out. Everybody listen to me. Okay, we're going to say it while we're going out. Hey, we're going to start a thing called Free Fred. Don't that sound nice?
What do you think, man? I mean, a lot to unpack there, right? Including everybody, inclusive. He also explains socialism.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of yourself, if you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Because socialism is inherently being for the people, for the working people. The problem is it's often maligned by authoritarianism and this fear of from the capitalist system. Now, maybe not any singular ideology is the answer for America, but socialism in itself, you're a card-carrying socialist the moment you got a social security card. You're a card-carrying socialist the moment you're driving public roads. And so what he basically means by that is you're against communion of the working class if you're against socialism, because what they told you that socialism isn't what it is, because capitalism in itself, and you can argue with me on this, but the whole point is to compete for resources. So it's that same mentality that's been applied to this country, to compete with your brother, your sister, your whoever, against for what? For money, to make somebody else at the top richer. Right? There's no gain that you get from that. If, for instance, if you have a company where everybody that works for the company owns a portion of that company, That is more of what I'm picturing, right? Something that is fair, not because you're working your ass off and then all the money is going straight to Jeff Bezos. That's the problem. And so that's what he means. Like, we need to build power together through the collective. And it doesn't matter what color you are. That's what they're afraid of. We need to band together because we have the numbers. We just are too busy fighting each other.
Yeah. And it's stuff is like hyper pushed by the mainstream media to keep people at each other's throats, keep people divided. And, and Whitney Webb said it not too long ago. She's like, the elites are laughing at us. She's like, ha ha, you people are so easy to divide. Once we come together and we understand, and I said this a lot of times, there's plenty of vanilla in that blender. I'm not saying that it ain't unequal, especially the judicial system and the jail system. I mean, there's so many people like, oh, well, it's not racial anymore. I'm like, well, why are there more black people in prison than there are white people? I mean, there's a lot of white people in prison, don't get me wrong. 750,000 black people, 700,000 white people. Why? Well, it's the old school days and stuff. Well, then we have to correct that. If we have people sitting in prison for a long time that are unjustly sitting there for low-level crimes because they were black in the 1960s and 70s, let's undo that. Let's commute their sentences and set them free. So if you want to fix the system, let's go and fix the system.
Right.
But also understand that we have to be in this together because, like I said, when I talk about vanilla in the blender, there's other ways they get you. The opioid addiction, the way they're getting all these people addicted and they're killing themselves. The military guys that are going off and blowing their brains off to PTSD. It's poverty, which is killing everybody. 80% of Americans are now working paycheck to paycheck. Let's join together, take care of these son of a bitches, and then we can work out all the other stuff too as well. But until we take care of those son of a bitches running everything, controlling the media, controlling what you say, we ain't going to do anything. And they're going to push to keep us divided, and they're doing a good job at it. We got to fight back and understand where we come together and take these son of a bitches down. Because once we take these son of a bitches down, fam, that's when the real healing begins.
And that's why it's a great thing when somebody like Niko goes on a conservative platform or somebody like Jimmy Dore goes on Tucker Carlson, because we all have the same idea. Cornel West, all these people that are willing to talk to people who may disagree with them or an audience that may not have heard that perspective from to themselves, meaning they are used to hearing people like Neera Tanden, people that are neoliberals that use identity politics, that you can't even have a conversation with them because you get stuck. They say, oh, you just said this, you said that. You can't even have a conversation with these people. But when you talk to somebody that's talking economics, it's talking class, and it's talking about how that impacts everything else, education, etc., and the imperialism that we push out onto other countries, impacting our immigration system. When you have people like that going live and talking to a conservative audience, that conservative audience is going to hear what real anti-imperialist leftism is, not what they have been told it is by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and all these other idiots.
Yeah. And the imperialism, they let people like John Brennan come on their channels and tell you stuff to just keep you so divided and stuff. That guy said the problem is authoritarianism and liberalism, like libertarianism. It's like, dude, you're talking about everybody who's not a neoliberal, who's not part of the establishment. That's the problem. And speaking of people who say we can have differences, I still support the Convo Couch. This is from Otis B. We still cool? Of course, we were never not cool. I can disagree with someone on one issue and still fight with them together on the issues we agree upon. And you know what? Hey, man, we can agree to disagree, and that's important. We have to get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. Plain and simple. What I saw right there with Fred Hampton was him talking to a lot of white working class people. There were a lot of conservative white people in that audience, probably, that he would be convincing them that socialism is not what they're trying to make it think like, right, what it seems like.
And he's not saying you're a dumbass for not understanding socialism. He's saying this is how it works. You don't have to call it socialism. Like I said, when I was in Iowa, I saw so many co-ops, but they didn't call it co-ops. They called it something else.
Yeah.
It's important to also be able to explain what these things are. And Caitlin Johnson put it up today or yesterday. Like, if you're going to be talking only theory in an intellectual elitist manner that nobody's going to understand you seem like a Trekkie who just wants to speak Klingon to his nerdy friends just to feel part of it. And that's what these fucking people are. They're classist as hell. That's why they were mad that Jimmy Dore said it, because he's a jagoff comedian. He's a doorknob. He's this and that. Like, he's not intellectual enough to lead this. Well, guess what? That is classist as fuck. And how dare you be classist if you're calling yourself a fucking socialist?
Yeah, thank you, fam. I'm going to leave it at that. When you call Jimmy a doorknob, we just got to go move on.